Uh, okay, let's call to order the Capital Budget Committee meeting of January 26th, 2026.
Motion to call to order?
Yes. Anyone
Second.
second it?
Oh.
Okay. All right, present.
Kathy Forrest, present.
Chrissy Francona present.
Rob Casemeyer here.
Ralph Dormitzer present.
Chris Peisch, present.
And Susan Franklin present. Okay, let's jump right in. So first on the agenda was the update on public safety. Kathy, did you have an update from your last?
I do. So the committee has been meeting on pretty much a weekly basis, going through most recently the programs of the fire department, and the potential changes to Elm Street, and also looking at the timeline, and trying to get to a timeline of having the police station on the warrant for the annual town meeting in May. So pushing towards that. A couple of things to follow up with this group on, because I know there were a couple of questions. One question that I wanted to get back to people on was, what about an alternative of building a second floor onto Elm Street for the police station? So we spoke with the architects about that. They said there would be major structural issues with putting a floor on top. But the thing that they said would really be an issue is that it would have to be, because of the amount of work being done on the police station, they would need to add an elevator shaft. They would need to make everything ADA compliant. And they would also need to have two forms of egress, meaning two sets of stairs down from the top floor to the bottom floor. So you wouldn't be able to double your square footage by putting another floor on top of the current Elm Street. You probably could maybe get 50% more square feet, because you'd be losing square footage both on both levels, because you'd have to be having ADA compliant hallways, ADA compliant bathrooms. You'd have to put in two sets of stairs as well as an elevator shaft. So the thinking is that you probably wouldn't save any money at all by doing that. Plus, you would have the additional cost of having to relocate the police and the detention facility somewhere else during the building, and it's not clear where that could be relocated. Any questions on that potential alternative? Another question we got was, what could we do with 10 million, which is the amount that the town had already voted on. So we talked to the architects about, and we obviously only have $6 million left of that. So we talked to the town architects about what they could do with King Street with that 6 million. And they said they could definitely refit the current building as an office building with that amount of money. Although the police would not be able to occupy that building, because they would not have enough funds to make it a class 4 building. And as soon as the police occupy any building, it would need to become a class 4 building. So they could make it an office building, but they could not make it a police station. And similarly, there was the possibility that could you build a detention center with that 10 million at King Street? But the problem is that you could do that, but you couldn't then put the police in the main building at 135 King Street, because then you would have to retrofit it as a class 4. So you would have a detention center, but the police wouldn't be in the same place. So that doesn't really make any sense either. And then I think another question that Ralph, you've had was on the land parcels that have been looked at as an alternative. And Glenn is here to kind of take us through those. And I can put that up on the screen. I can share my screen. Yeah. So let me pull that up. And Glenn, maybe you can take us through that. Let me pull this up here. Let's see. We have it in a different place.
Thank you for, in the meantime, for going through that, Kathy.
You're welcome. I mean, they're all good questions. All right, I'm going to share my screen, but I need to be able to, let me see if I can twist this around. Let's see. There we go. Can everybody see my screen with the Route 3A corridor?
Yes.
Okay, maybe let me get a little bit bigger. Glenn, would you be happy taking the group through?
Sure.
Great.
Good evening, everyone. If you start in the top left of the screen where you see the word Great Swamp and there's a little triangle right there, that little triangular piece of land is town owned. It's cemetery. It's designated for cemetery. It's part of Woodside Cemetery. If the next one down, beside that is a parcel of land that is owned by the Paul Barry family, and it is adjacent to Williams Landscape and the Hingham Lumber Company. It goes back up over the hill towards where the landfill used to be. So it's privately owned, and the front part down by the street is a wetlands swamp area. If you go across directly above that, where that is the land which is called Great Swamp. It's a standing swamp with water in it all the time. It's behind the JJ's ice cream store, and it's owned by the Transit Authority. If you come down to the next piece where the cursor is, you have that little piece of land, which is where the current storage building is. There's a little street that goes beside that. This is the parcel of land up to the top of that little cul-de-sac. It's also owned by the Barry family, and it is as bad a terrain as the piece we already own on 135. Across the street, the square, that is a town-owned parcel. It's about 4 acres. There is a brook that goes through there, but we were able to find enough space in Highland there to get that designated as our reserve area for our leaching field at 135. If you come all the way down to the little rectangle piece right there, that's the piece that's between Red Fox Lane, the Cook Estate, and behind Stop and Shop. It's about 8 acres. It's town owned. It does have a conservation restriction preventing building on it because it is in the watershed. It, in fact, is the headwaters of Peppermint Brook, which is one of the main tributaries to Lily Pond. If you come down to the next 4 little parcels, those are all parcels that were left over from the so-called Veterans Project, which is the little neighborhood right off of Pond Street. Those all are small house lots, but they straddle Peppermint Brook. So in the 50s, when they developed all that area in there, they didn't use those because they weren't buildable then, and they certainly aren't buildable now, plus they're too small. If you come down to the next parcel, this is the much talked about Esposito property that the town purchased a few years ago. Portions of it, all of it is in the watershed. The Peppermint Brook, again, one of the main tributaries to the pond, runs through portions of it. Some of it has been divided off now to satisfy our conservation land trade-off for the cell tower that's being put in Wheelwright Park. So this parcel doesn't have enough buildable space anyway, and I would expect that the opposition from the Water Commission would be incredibly strong to do anything there. If you come down to the next big block down, that is tucked in between Shaw's and the Rockland Trust and the David Hassan sign shop. It's all land that's owned by that investment trust that owns the Shaw's property. And the next little piece down, close to the Situate line, it's owned by the Ferreira family. They have a couple of little businesses down there. It's near where the across the street from the car wash in Aubuchon and in there, tucked in there. So small and difficult. So the thing is that of these 13 parcels, 5 of them are owned private ownership, so we would have to acquire them. That doesn't save us any money. And the others are too small, or they're restricted in some way with conservation or wetlands issues. That's why we went away from all of these. There is one other parcel of land. If you go up Crocker Lane, which is the road that goes up to the big sports complex up behind Hingham Lumber, and on the left-hand side, there's a Mass DOT owns some land that used to be the old Army Nike site. There's a small piece down in the front of that, but it's way off the beaten path. Being an old military base, undoubtedly contaminated, and it belongs to the state. And so we just passed that as being too small, in addition to all the other complications. So if you look at that corridor on 3A, which is where we've been trying to locate some public safety facilities for over 50 years, we have picked just about the only thing available at 135. Happy to answer any questions.
So Glenn, you brought up wetlands a couple of times. I know that there have been variances made by for concessions, like the fire station for Situate, for example. They had to get a variance for wetlands. But is your point on the wetlands in the James Hill and King Street area more related to the Peppermint Brook aspect, or that you think we would be unable to attain a variance if we wanted to get one?
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Susan, but the Peppermint Brook is the biggest issue for 2 or 3 of these parcels. We, as Rob Casemeyer knows, back in the early 2000s, we spent nearly $4 million acquiring 300 acres of land for watershed protection in and around Lily Pond, and certainly trying to build a commercial building near one of the tributaries is just wrong.
Okay. And in this section of, can you hear me now? Because I turned up my microphone.
I'm listening carefully, but it's very low volume, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. Had this trouble. So this section of 3A that you're looking at, we're not going beyond Great Swamp because is it no longer Cohasset land at that point? Or do you just feel it's too far, north from?
No, that's the town line is very, very close to that little triangle where we cemetery land. And beyond the cemetery land, from there all the way up to the Hingham line is trustees of reservations. So there's absolutely no opportunity to do anything there. And the rest, we go all the way down to the Situate line, which is where that Ferreira small parcel is.
Right.
I think that one of the devilish problems we have with locating anything in Cohasset, whether it be a building or a ball field, is there just is no open land.
Glenn, this is Ralph. Roughly opposite the Stop and Shop and what is now known as Whitney Woods, there's lots and lots of land. It's owned by the trustees of reservations, Canton, not ours, but one in Canton. Has anyone made an inquiry about any of that land? Remember, there's a parking lot for trustees for Whitney Woods right there. And adjacent to that parking lot and going down toward maybe kind of southward, there's just flat open space. It is trustees of reservation land, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't be willing to do something in a trade-off. So the question is, why haven't we given that land consideration, as it does not require a great deal of site work? It looks absolutely terrific. It's beautiful land. And it is not where the trails are. The trails go off to the right and that land goes off to the left.
Well, number one, trustees of reservations will not sell any land for any reason to anybody, period. We did have success with them when the Water Commission was working to get some land to put in the pumping station on 3A to pump water to Linden Ponds 20 years ago. But that was an equal swap, and lots of restrictions came with it. And we had some other discussions with trustees of reservations on some of the wetlands protection parcels we bought. They're very difficult. They have no interest in letting any of their property go for any sort of a commercial venture. And so that's why I personally have not talked to them, and I wouldn't even bring it up. It's just not right. And as a reference point, just because that field is there and it looks flat, it's still very expensive. We, during the COVID years, we engineered a parking lot for the buses in front of Deer Hill School, which is a flat lawn. And the engineering and the site work was $400,000 just to put a flat parking lot there for 12 buses. So to take a field that you're referring to, I think, and think you can make it into a buildable lot inexpensively because it looks flat, it's not the case.
But it's surely less than $8 million, which is what you're going to pay to actually excavate behind your 135 King Street. You got an $8 million problem there.
Well, that's not what the line item on the estimate comes in at.
What is the cost of site work for 135 Kings? I thought that was actually a big portion of the increase from 10 to 27.
Well, the site work, all in for stormwater management and driveways and all those things, and excavating the hill and excavating foundations, is about 2.4 million. That was on the last estimate. I'm not sure what'll change as we look at the new idea for not putting the fire station there, though. I think that the possibilities of finding another parcel in the 3A corridor are just not there.
Have you talked to the Barrys about what they do or not?
I have not, because I don't see that anybody's going to give us any land. We're going to have to pay for it, and that's going to add to the cost of the endeavor, it seems to me, but I'm happy to hear what others think about that.
Well, the Barrys are moving out of Cohasset, and may have already moved, so maybe they'd be open to that. Who knows?
Okay, well, we can think about that, I guess. Yeah.
And the assumption would be that we would then sell the building we have now at 135 King? Is that what you're talking about, Ralph? Buy a new piece of land?
I would hope so. Yeah, you certainly don't want to just simply leave it there and take a loss. You do have to sell it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we overpaid for it. It was assessed for $1 million something, and we paid 2.2. And so the risk you have is you drop $1 million right away, plus you drop all the money you've spent on the architects. So that's a huge amount. So you end up with a significant loss when you get there. If you get $6 million left out of the original 2.2, and you can only get maybe a couple of million out of the building itself, you're really talking about a $4 million loss over there. I mean, it's a huge loss. It's certainly not attractive, but
well, look at it, Ralph. Look at it on the right side. Say we get exactly what we bought it for out, so that's a wash on the building.
Okay.
Now can we find another parcel of land under some conditions or terms or dollar amount that we could build a new building on for some other number? Yeah,
that's the question, right. Yeah. I mean, I don't have an answer either. What I have, you and I have talked a lot about it. I think that if we stay up at the 17 million on top of the 10.2, it's trouble. And I know there's some options we could talk about, but you're asking for something that looks sort of outsized as compared to anybody else who is any other small town in the last 5 years that's built a police building. It's not even close. So, you do comparatives and you say, how come we're 30 million and everybody else can come in at 20 or less? I mean, and that's the real, that's the thing you're having to face. So I don't know. I don't have a solution for you either. I wish I did. Don't know.
I'd also like to understand just the cost of remediation at the current building. I know last time I brought up sort of the question of what is the purpose of this, and I'd heard so much about response times and moving away from a fire station there, a substation seems to make that argument less relevant. And so it's more about these issues that we've had. And so I'd love to understand, not even like necessarily increase the second floor and elevator shaft, but if we were to just remediate, what does that cost as an alternative as well?
Well, I don't understand the question. What was the question again? If we did what as an alternative?
Just the remediation of the issues. What I'm hearing is that there are issues at the current police station that were failing these inspections for 10 years. I just read that. And so I'd like to understand, okay, if that is why we are asking the town to spend, close to $30 million in the new, I don't know why we're asking the town to spend $30 million. It went from response times, but now I understand that's not as important, certainly if we're not pursuing a fire station. So if it is truly, now I'm seeing the narrative of, hey, we have these issues and we've failed inspections for 10 years. So if that is the case, I would like to understand, well, what does it actually cost to just remediate those issues at the current station?
It's not possible.
Why?
Because the building is too small. It's not constructed properly. It does not lend itself to modern day policing. There are no alternatives that we can see to make that building usable for police. There is complications and difficulty with parking already. The police department has multiple vehicles kept off site now. And so to try to convince ourselves that modern policing in our little department can work out of that building, we're just kidding ourselves. And I would have you had a chance to go through the building? Because we could bring you down sometime too, if you're available.
No, I haven't seen
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it as a citizen, but
Yeah,
not.
you feel like you're in a residential house when you're inside there. And that's certainly not a place where you can operate a police department, whether it be modern day, what they do that's so different. The building has to have armories and places to store ammunition and lock up evidence, and you have to have a place where you can sit down and have a Zoom call with the courts every morning, because they do arraignments virtually now instead of going to Quincy. So all of these spaces, there's just no room to put them in there. There's no lunchroom, there's no meeting rooms, there's no interview rooms. It just doesn't work. And to think that we can squeeze it in by doing something different is not valid, because we also have this not as difficult issues, but similar types of things on the fire side. The fire is out of compliance on a lot of things. There are health and safety issues that happen over there that need to be corrected. And we have a second ambulance which stays in a barn behind the town hall. It's not used, and any vehicle that stays out in the weather is not good. So we have issues with all the public safety departments, and trying to fix it by doing something on Elm Street won't work. Even the renovations that we're going to probably be talking about to bring the fire side up to compliance, one of the big things that we haven't figured out yet is, what if we have to relocate the fire department while we do that work? Where do we put those vehicles? So, the route we're going has for a long time been thought to be the right way. It's the price that sidetracked it, I think. And anybody can jump in on that. I guess I'm the only one on the committee beside Kathy, but.
It was just, the only thing it was, Glenn, is it's really clear it was never a great selection as a building, because the building wasn't this class 4. It requires too much interior work. And then, of course, the site requires an enormous amount of work. And there's a lot of things that were not right in actually acquiring that building, including what we paid for it. So for a lot of us, let me get rid of this phone. Oh, checkers.
That's the town calling you to tell you something about the storm.
That's probably right. That's probably either that or something really yelling at me. But whatever.
Everybody's phone rang at the same time, I hope.
I got 2 calls. That's got to be interesting. But anyway, I don't know what to do. Because I'm perfectly happy to say that we need to have a much more modern police facility. I have no doubt that's the right thing to do. But the way we're doing it now seems as though we're going to be defeated. and therefore we don't even have an option on our hands. And I always say, and of course this one's very tough because I don't even have a clear option on this one. I don't really know what the option is, but in the absence of anything and saying we're still going to spend 30 million beggars the question whether or not you're really asking for another defeat at town meeting. And that says I don't know where you go at that point. I'd rather say we got a solution or we have something, right? Or we have some alternative, however difficult.
Well, I think alternatives are great, but I don't see it. Now, maybe I'm not looking at it objectively. I've been working on this for over 2 years, and now our committee has been expanded to 15 people. So we have a lot more eyes and a lot more thinking going on. And Kathy may be able to chime in on this, but we're not coming up with any great ideas that are too far off from where we started.
Yeah, I think that's right. We have a lot of people who have a lot more experience in the construction industry than me, and Glenn's right. Nobody's got great ideas, and nobody is saying, "Oh yeah, this is extravagant" or "This is way too much." They're looking at the plans, they're looking at the programs in detail, and there's just no great alternatives.
So we keep thinking we have to find a way to make this work, and that's where we are. That's why we keep pitching it.
Yeah. Did get some questions at the forums as well about like, can we share a detention center with Situate? And she quickly put together a nice memo, which I can share with everyone. But we really can't. First of all, crime is prosecuted at the county level, and we're not in the same county as Situate or Hingham. We are in Norfolk County, so everything happens at Dedham. Whereas Hingham and Situate, everything happens at Plymouth. So you've already got some conflicts in terms of prosecution and where the prisoners are versus where the prosecutors and the defense attorneys are. And then there's a big liability issue because you're then asking other towns to take the liability. And as we know, a big portion of the people who wind up in detention end up going to the hospital. So there's quite a big liability that we're not sure the other towns would want, but we would probably have to pay quite a penny in order for them to take that liability. And then there are also issues with the police unions. So right now, we're required to have 2 police officers every time we transport a prisoner. But we also are required to have 3 police officers on duty in town at all times. So if we have 2 police officers transporting prisoners to Situate or Hingham, we then are out of compliance with the union contract for the number of police officers who are in town, which means we would have to be putting more police on shift in order to transport prisoners, which then adds to our operating costs. So it starts to make a lot less sense.
Well, not only are we out of compliance with the union contract when those officers are out of town, it's just plain not safe for anybody, the community or the one police officer who's out there by himself.
Yeah. So I can, Chief, quickly put together some good information. I will send that along to everybody.
Yeah. And one of the big legal parts of it too, and I read, which you'll probably see in there, is that I think it said something like a prisoner has to be arraigned in the same jurisdiction where the offense occurred. So if you can't arraign them at our station or book them, that pretty much ends it right there. If you have to take them to Situate, it won't work, or hang them or anyhow.
I'm curious, Ralph, you mentioned earlier that there are some smaller towns, similar in profile to Cohasset that, have recently in the last 5 years, gone through this process. Because I feel like the thing I've heard is, well, Hingham cost whatever amount and Situate cost whatever amount. It was more than 5 years ago. So I would love to see some comps from comparable towns.
I'll give you a rundown that I did, and there was I did more on AI, but I can tell you the numbers quickly. Okay, Sutton, 15 police officers, square foot of police facility 12,600. Cost in 2015, that goes back a long way, was $5,895,000. But anyway, to bring you up to more recent ones, Carver was 2021, 12,000 square feet. It cost $7.5 million. Duxbury was done in 2024. It was 19,600 square feet, 17,100,000. Marshfield, no, that's a very large one, but anyway, I'll give you the numbers. It's Marshfield was done in 2021. It was 14,700,000.
I don't think that's the right number for Marshfield, Ralph.
I could be wrong, okay,
Yeah.
but that's what I got off the net. Provincetown was done in 20, or is being done now as 2023 numbers, though. They had 21 police officers, very similar to us. The facility was 13,684 square feet, and they were getting quoted at 16,600,000. And if you go online, you can see there's a whole bunch of others. I could cite you a zillion of them. But ours is almost double the average, which is interesting. Now you can argue that since this time there's 20% increase in wages or costs, but nothing approaches the 30 million bucks that we're talking about on any of the towns who are similar in size or size of police force. It's just not. So the comparisons are really quite significant. Interestingly enough, if you get on the Provincetown site, they actually give you all of the comparatives that they use. They use comparatives to make sure that they were fitting within. So if you get onto that site, you'll see a lot of these same numbers as I have. So
Thank you for sharing. Glenn, what is the current square footage for the current facility?
Glenn should
was
tell
that-
me 'cause it's changed, yeah.
It was at like 23 before. Was that right?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know what the new one's going to be when we lop off the idea about the fire substation. We
Okay.
should know that this week, though.
Okay.
But one of the things is that with cost, is that unless it was a price that was in the last few months, there's no way to compare anything, especially something 10 years ago. And the other thing that's way outside the scope of any of these boards on the call here tonight is the way the police department is run. We're building a facility and trying to find a facility that accommodates the way our police department is run. Now, if that's going to be changed, I would think that's something at the select board level and the police chief level and the union level and stuff like that. So we're kind of dealing with what we have when we're looking at space. Not a way to
What does that mean? How our police department is run? Like what is? Sorry if this is. I can take it as a follow up too. Like,
well, I mean, I'm not in the police field. I'm not a police officer. I'm not a police chief. So I don't have a clue whether there's another way to run a police department in a community like ours or not. I do not know. But
that would be
even if there is, it wouldn't be something this committee is supposed to be dealing with.
No, I'm just asking because
I don't know.
You brought it up. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
But comps are things we do deal with.
Well, I don't see I looked at some of the comparison things that Ralph has said. There are different rooms, there are different uses. There are all sorts of things. Some of them are wood frame buildings. It just some of the spaces are bigger than what we've designed. So it's all over the place. And unless you sat down, I think a bunch of hand-selected police chiefs and said, okay, what's different about these buildings? I don't think we really can tell on our own. You can say to that.
Having gone through the Marshfield facility, it's really unbelievably nice. So I haven't gone through the other ones that Ralph mentioned, but the Marshfield one was incredible.
Indeed, it is. It's what a modern policing facility probably should look like.
We'd be surprised if our operation was wouldn't fit within that type of building.
I bet it would fit nicely.
So Glenn, you made a comment about Elm Street and whether or not that building was going to be even useful for the fire department. Is there any and I know that.
No, I said the reason that we can't do renovations there for police is that it wouldn't give us the ability to do the renovations and upgrades we need to bring the fire department into compliance with a lot of the things that they need to do.
Well, yeah, you did say
We're
that.
going to be we're going to be looking at that. I think at a two meetings from now with the
I'm just trying to get to whether or not if we were to sell both these buildings, how much money would we have to work with? And I understand it's a operational nightmare, but has that been thought about?
What was the question again, Sue?
Have we thought about selling both these two buildings to come up with a better solution, across the board for fire and police?
Our committee is not. We probably hadn't been charged with looking at that, so we have not talked about it even.
Okay, well, all right. We're just backed into the situation we're in because we own this building.
Yeah, I guess the
Um,
problem would be,
and-
Susan, if we sold those buildings, where would we move to?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know, but my biggest concern from the very beginning with this is, are we gonna end up with a facility that in 5 or 10 years doesn't fit our needs anymore? And we're on a very difficult site and we don't have a lot of space, to work with. That was back when it first got approved, we were worried about the site. I know we're all trying to work for a solution, towards a solution, but thinking outside the box is part of that. And that's why I brought up the variance thing. I mean, and we've all been doing research on the side, trying to figure out ways to get this, something to work here.
Well, I think that in order to, even if we found a piece of land large enough to do it, it's going to cost more than the $2.5 million we spent for the parcel we have. So, and I don't think we're going to save that much on construction site work, no matter where we go, especially in the 3A corridor. We're going to have to probably take a piece of land by eminent domain because the ones that are available are not going to be buildable. And who knows what the cost would be. I just recently had the experience of building a new home here in Cohasset on King Street. And I want to tell you, for those who don't know, the Conservation Commission is incredibly strict, very difficult to come to consensus on to build something. And I was building a house, not a commercial truck garage and a police station and all those things like that. So I think unless we find a piece of land that we don't have to get many variances from the conservation folks on, we're going to be in deep trouble. And almost any place that's not on the 3A corridor is in a community. It's in a neighborhood. So that might not be what we want to do for long range planning of the community. And I'm sure the planning board would weigh in on that too.
It's difficult. It's difficult situation to figure out. There's no doubt about that. But and I appreciate all the work that's going into it.
Well, I don't think any
I
of
don't
us,
have a- I
any
don't
of
have a
us,
silver
none of us
bullet
mind,
either.
none of us mind doing the work. We run down every idea or every suggestion, or every question that we hear, and we're just not pulling a rabbit out of a hat with any good ideas the same way. We get sometimes we get to the point where something has to be done with a public facility, and I think the police station one is up now. This is probably our biggest problem, and something that has to be solved. The department is being asked to operate out of a facility that just does not work, and in addition to what liabilities and violations and stuff like that, it's not right for the community. We have some photographs we took down off the surveillance camera in the lobby of the station a few weeks ago. And there are 3 separate groups of people in there talking to police officers about issues or problems they have. And they're all crowded into this little 10 by 10 space. Just not right. And the other thing that's not known by a lot of people is that many times the courts use the police station address as an exchange point for custody of children. So on Friday afternoons and Sunday afternoons, sometimes it's just a plain madhouse there. And it just doesn't work anymore.
So just so that I get it in my mind, the King Street facility was basically going to be 30 million bucks. And then the Elm Street one, to renovate that is another 10 million.
Well, we are taking a first look at the new idea for that building at our meeting next Thursday.
Right. So what we're looking at here is not a 20 million or even a $30 million facility. We're talking about a $40 million facility. That's unbelievable. I mean,
Well,
we've been through the facility. I couldn't agree with you more. The police part of that is totally inadequate for what it's being asked to do, and the fire department needs work for sure. But you know, it's it's a big expenditure when you look at the whole thing compared to other towns, it seems to me.
I mean, a thing to think about, Rob, is that we've spent pretty much zero money on these public safety facilities since they were built in the 1960s.
That's
One
true. That's
one
true.
would say that if we had maybe spent some more money earlier on, we would not be in this situation. It's just finally coming to roost, really.
Those are good comments.
The problem is selling that to the town, and I don't think the
Mhm.
town is prepared for it at all. I mean, they reacted, everyone that I've talked to reacts, just, and I'm not negative about it. I'm just presenting it or asking them about it. And what I get on it is very um, discouraged response for, the $30 million number. And if we're really talking about 40 million, then that's how do we get to a better facility or better facilities for a more reasonable price? That's the question. Is it possible? I
Yeah,
don't think
I know,
it'll
Kath.
I don't think it'll sell to say, well, we operate differently. That's I can't see
Right,
that selling.
right.
Yeah, and I know Kathy, last time you were talking about just like lack of engagement in the forums, and I get it. You guys are putting in the time and effort and, trying to get the word out there. I think the reality is most people are not going to pay attention until it's on a ballot and just seeing a price. So it was pulled off, I would say the narrative was it was pulled off due to cost and sort of rescoping. And if we're actually coming in and asking for a higher number 6 months or a year later, I I don't see that passing. Just that's just my personal opinion. So I think if the story is, hey, we did not invest for decades, I would love to see comps of towns that did invest in decades and then spent, a proportional amount, or look at, I know there's a lot of, I know a small town is harder for this because there are certain things, there are table stakes of things you have to have regardless of the size of the population. But looking at comparable square footage, like I'm a numbers person, hence probably why I'm on this committee. But I think the story needs to tie the numbers together in a way that just was not there in the fall, and I'm concerned that you guys are putting in a ton of work, but I'm concerned the sort of headline is what people will see, and it's not headed the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, we have asked Michelle she was going to kick off a benchmarking study that was a little, a little more formalized and dug into the information a little bit more about square footage and costs, as well as would include, a factor for the construction cost escalation that we've seen over the past few years. So I think we will want to have that at hand. The other thing we really want to have at hand as well is a tax calculator so people can see what the annual cost for them would be. Because yes, 29 million sounds like a really big number, but when you spread it out across the people in town over probably 30 years, it then becomes less of a huge number. And it is something that we need to keep the town safe. I have had so many police officers come to me and say that they're really struggling to retain police officers in the current facility. and that there aren't a lot of people going into policing nowadays. And there's many people going into policing that they would never want to hire here in Cohasset, but it's becoming harder and harder to attract good caliber police officers when they come in, they see the state of the facility. So it's not just like we need the space to do this, but we also need the space to attract the right kind of talent for our public safety personnel.
I guess this would be for Rob or maybe Ralph. What amount of information, convincing statistical information, do you think has to be presented for your board to get on, your committee to get on board with, yes, this is what we have to do, this is what the price is, and it is what it is? I mean, how much can we bring in to prove our point before you're convinced? I guess that might be a rhetorical question, but
you've already identified them pretty much. You've got to do comparatives, okay? It's got to be comparative on price, comparative on function, comparative with similar towns. And if you want to escalate it from whatever, 2022, whatever the numbers are, whenever the last more recent one was, you got to make those adjustments associated with the comparatives. But in the absence of comparatives, and it's not just cost, it's square footage, it's cost, number of police, and then you have something to say, okay, here's where we fit with regard to other towns of similar size, similar demographics, similar wealth, and then you'll have something that says, okay, here are the differences, or maybe there are no differences, maybe we're in the middle. That kind of thing helps people a lot, because they say we've considered all the other towns and what they have done and how they differ from us. So that's how I look at it.
Right. Otherwise, it's just a number on a piece of paper that they're looking at, and it seems to just be too big. But because they're not doing that homework on their own, they're not going to know what other towns have faced.
I agree. I think that though that it should include the Elm Street site. I think you're doing the right thing extending it to that, because you can't have one without the other. You've got the way that it's going. So the comparable has to cover both.
So to be clear, Rob, I think the plan is that we will have an estimate of a number for the Elm Street site, but the Elm Street site construction wouldn't start for
Oh no.
minimum
that's fine.
3 years. So that
That's
would
fine.
not be on the warrant. That would not be being voted. It would be there so that people understand what the total cost of public safety is, but it
Yes.
wouldn't be something that the townspeople would be voting on.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mhm.
Does that make sense, Glenn?
I hear you. I got it. Yeah, absolutely.
We're not against it. I don't
Glenn,
hear Ralph saying this is the worst idea ever, or myself.
yeah.
It's just,
Glenn, let me
it's a
ask
big number, and how do you sell it?
Yeah, we've had this we've had this discussion before. The town could actually make this part of its capital stabilization fund right now if it wanted to. In other words, it is not necessary to actually go and create a excluded debt override question on the ballot. You don't have to do that. You and I have talked about that, and I said the town does not have a great deal of debt right now. It could absorb the debt that would show up in the capital stabilization fund. So whatever the actual annual amount is, it would be reduced from our $2 million annual appropriation. But that doesn't mean that appropriation couldn't be increased by some amount to cover that. But in other words, not to make this an excluded debt question takes a huge load off. Now, I don't want to make that an excuse for me for building a building that's either too large or too expensive. But in fact, it is one way to avoid a rejection at the town meeting, because you'd only have to get a majority vote, and that's it.
So, Ralph,
that's not true. You'd have to get a 2/3 vote, because it's a borrowing issue. You'd have to get a 2/3 vote at the town meeting, but you would not have to go to a ballot.
And Ralph, I don't understand the finances of it, but if we wouldn't increasing the appropriation to the capital stabilization fund, would that then cut the amount of budget that they had for operations?
Yeah, well, there's a $60 million budget right now, Kathy. So it's not insubstantial. So if you had to increase, let's say, the capital stabilization fund from 2 million to 2.5 million, some number like that. That
Mhm.
$500,000 would go a long way to actually covering a 30-year bond. In other words, that's how you'd look at it. Although you'd have to do some real numbers on that. But there's a way to do this, which in fact avoids the need to go to a ballot. So
What group would be working on that financing arrangement, Ralph? Would that be your group with the town manager, or how would we start that look?
I think the first thing you do is we have to have a number from you guys, right? Okay,
Yeah,
number one
right.
is we need some kind of number, right?
Right.
Once you have the number, then you say, okay, over a 30-year bond, how much is it going to cost? No matter whether it's from the town people or whether it's out of the capital stabilization fund, how much per year would that cost? Okay, and then you got something to work on. I don't want it to be an excuse not to actually do the homework to say we're doing the right thing, but it is a way to avoid the rejection, which I don't want any more than you do. I don't like the idea of having to have one more large project rejected in the town, but I do want it to be reasonable, but there's a way to do it. So
Is it possible, Ralph, to have a debt exclusion, but a smaller amount? So some of it would be taken care of in the capital stabilization fund, and some of it would be a debt exclusion?
yeah, sure. But the problem with debt exclusion is you go to a ballot. That's the
Right, okay.
Yeah, you don't want to do that if you can avoid it. So sure, you can do it. You can split it any way you want. But
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
Ralph's right. I mean, we need the number because not only do you have
Yeah.
to figure out, what that payment would be, but we also have to figure out whether we can get, the select board behind giving, enough money to our stabilization fund to cover that debt load. So it starts with a number.
So to get back to Glenn's question, would Linda be the person to talk with on that as to what the mechanics would be, so that we can have a better idea of what who's doing what to whom on this, and where the money is. It's not like a P underneath one of three thimbles. We need to know what the structure is, what the deal is. Would
Yes, she would ultimately be the one that would go out and speak to the providers that, about the structure of the bond. But again, she can't go out without having an idea of a number that we're looking for. That's where it starts. And this is large enough that it would probably be an independent one, but sometimes she does package them with other things when we have smaller ones. But this one was probably large enough to go out on its own.
Okay, that's great.
So then, would it make sense to talk with her about, let's assume that it's a $40 million investment, because it's going to be pretty close to that. If it's 35, okay, that's fine, but it won't be, it'll be 40. And so, for the two.
Right.
But I don't
And,
think you would bond for the second project now.
yeah, you don't have to bond it now. I understand that, but have that in mind, and ask her. I think it would make sense to understand what that process would be, what the impacts would be, and so on.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Ralph and Glenn?
oh, of course, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay. We can do that.
The only thing I'd say to you, Glenn, is if I were in your shoes, I would have talked to Williams, I would have talked to Barry, I would have talked to the trustees, I would have talked to a lot of people, including what kinds of parcels along 3A you might have to take by eminent domain. I would have looked at all of those, every one of them, and made sure that there was no option outside of where you are. So, it seems to me at least you would be able to say, yeah, there are absolutely no chances because the Williams don't want to sell any part of their parcel. The Barrys don't want to sell anything, not reasonably, or whatever the issues are. At least you know. And the trustees, the reservations are adamant. Not even for a public building would they do this. I don't know. I want to make sure that all happens. You may say, well, all of that, none of that land's good enough, but some of that land is good. So,
Has the town ever taken anything by eminent domain?
sure. Yeah.
Yes.
It's not a nice process. It is
Yeah.
definitely not a nice process. Right. But it's done for public purposes. It's legitimate. It's certainly not, it's certainly rejected for private purposes, as you well know. There was a huge case in New Haven, Connecticut, where that was done. It was horrendous. So, oh gosh, this town of Cohasset, they do want to talk to me. Wouldn't you know? Okay, turn that off. Okay.
Okay.
I
Well, thanks
forwarded my,
everybody. What was that, Rob?
I was just going to say, Ralph, I forwarded any town calls to go directly to you. So if you do get an extra one, it's probably the one I forwarded.
Thanks a lot, Rob.
Thank you everyone for your time and attention. This is a super important matter. Thank you very much, Glenn, for joining us as well. It was really helpful to have you here.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you,
Thank you.
Glenn.
Definitely.
Yep.
Thank you,
Okay.
Glenn.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.
So I don't see Michelle on. She was going to give us a little bit of a view of the 10-year plan for our facilities, since they're very busy this week, obviously, and unable to attend, but I don't see her right now. So, but I do
Yeah.
see,
I'm sorry, Michelle had to pop off she lost heat in her house, so
Oh,
she had to
no.
pop off.
okay, that's fine. We can table that until a future meeting. But we do have Chief Dockeray on, so we might as well promote him. Lisa? Hi, Chief.
Good evening, everyone.
How are you?
Hi.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Is everyone here
Busy
tonight?
day?
No, relatively daily business here at the fire station or the fire service. Our biggest incident was Saturday night. We had a fire at Bia Bistro in the rear of the building.
Oh,
So
wow.
all our excitement was before the storm, but during the storm, it's just been day-to-day service, wires, medicals, fire alarms. So everyone
Mhm.
stayed off the roads, which was beneficial, and so we've been lucky. Yep, been very, very lucky.
That's good to hear. So, we're bringing you back in again to talk a little bit more about the pumper. I know that some questions had come up about the guidelines that come from the MFPA, and I think
Yep.
Michelle had shared some of that with you. So if
I
maybe
I
we're
sent the
still a little confused about the age, the use, the number of years it's used for frontline here in our town versus what they're saying, and whether we're just reading their provisions wrong.
No, so for frontline, the NFPA regulations, recommendations, standards, a frontline piece is 10 to 15 years.
Mhm.
So our two frontline engines, engine one, 2018 is now coming up on 9 years. Our engine two at 2010 is coming up on 16 years. Our engine three, which is 2001, is now coming up on 25 years. So that's the piece we're looking to replace is the 2001 engine. And then 2010 engine, which will now will be coming up with 16 years after the calendar year is over, will go into that mechanical or reserve status, and we'll get another 9 to 10 years out of that, sitting in that position. So that's how it works, is that we need two frontline pieces of apparatus to provide suppression and rescue service and everything else we do on a daily basis to the community. So that's how it works.
Okay, so that's a little clearer to me.
So I just have a question on that, Chief, and I read through a lot of a lot of sort of background information on the basis for that, and I couldn't find really when that had been revised. How long has it been kind of with this kind of of a sequence. What I did read on it was that the sequence was originally set up by tracking in part by tracking the costs of operation of the vehicles. And the question that comes up it came up at our last session was they've have our costs been going up at all for to keep the vehicles up and going and in good shape because for goodness sakes um, everybody's cars last a lot longer than they used to last 10 years ago.
Yeah. So, under the standards, there was no standards about cost and NFPA regulations. There's no standards around cost. It's about years of service. However, this capital budget or this capital outlay plan for replacing apparatus has been going on for 30 some odd years, as 10 to 15 years as a frontline piece of apparatus, and then the next 10 years or so mechanical reserve. And that's been going on since I've been on the department for 30 years. I can tell you last year in fiscal 25, I have a operating budget of about $43,000 for vehicle maintenance. And I hit $80,000 last year on vehicle maintenance. I can tell you for engine one, repair costs for FY25 was $19,477. And then for engine two, I had $26,860 on repair cost. For this year alone, engine one right now stands at $9,323,000, but engine one is going out for front end work and some sensors that need to be replaced. So that cost will be going up, and it won't be going out until after we get over winter. Okay.
Sure.
So engine two repairs so far to date in this fiscal year right now is at $2,200. So
Chief, because it seems to me like one of the things we're trying to mitigate is ensuring that we have two workable engines in town at all times, right?
Correct.
So, because when the engines go to get fixed, they're not going down to Robbins Station. They're obviously going somewhere else. So for instance, when you take, did you say engine one or engine two going out for a big repair, how many days is that?
it depends on the repair shop. They may be waiting for parts. Again, we're held by the dealership, how long it takes to repair it. They could get into it and find some other issues that we can only see on the surface. Then they start ripping it up and it's like, oh boy, this is broken, this needs repaired. And that happens. A prime example, last year on engine 2, we were having exhaust problems and ended up, we had to put a whole new exhaust system on the truck, which was a $14,000 repair.
Do you
So-
remember how long it was in the shop? Was it 2
Well,
days? Was it a week?
It was out for about 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So 14 of the 26 was for the exhaust system.
Yep. And so prime example, engine 1, when we just put new front tires on it, the tire shop said, you got some front end issues we can't fix, but it needs to go back to the dealership and it's going to need some major front end work. So I was like, okay. Matter of fact, we just had to do tie rods and wheel alignment for engine 2 because it failed the state inspection back in November, and that was done back in December.
Yeah, I mean, we're always going to have some degree of maintenance on these
Right.
units throughout their life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions about the turnover of the engines?
Yeah, can I jump in there, Susan?
Sure. Yeah, please.
Okay. Chief, let me just sort of give you an observation which occurred as a result of what the DPW has decided to do. As you know, they have a number of large trucks, often used now for plowing. Thank heavens we have them. The most recent acquisition, I'm not sure whether it was a 550 or a 650. It's a large truck anyway. They are not going to get another diesel. And the reason they're not going to get another diesel is that the Environmental Protection Agency has created almost a nightmare scenario that, in fact, there are so many sensors now associated with air exhaust, in every other possible part of the engine that it's become uneconomical, quite frankly, to actually buy a diesel truck anymore. You're better off buying a gasoline truck where the engine light does not come on all the time, as you're probably now experiencing with your diesels, and which are getting worse and worse as the requirements for exhaust change almost yearly with the EPA regulations. So I'm posing to you that is it maybe wise, in order to avoid in this new engine you're going to get, the new pumper you're going to get, is it wise to stay with a diesel where we know that in fact the problem really associated with these is primarily it's associated with all those sensors which fail, and then you get a red light on your dashboard all the time? Is that what's now happening? And would you consider going back to gasoline engines where those problems seem to be less?
So I completely agree with you, Ralph. Prime example, the new ambulance we purchased is a gasoline engine and not a
Okay.
diesel. Okay. Fire engines and DPW trucks are apples and oranges. Right now, I don't think anyone makes a gas fire engine. It's diesel or electric. And I don't even get near electric for a fire engine, because we could be on scene for 3 to 4 hours operating, pumping water. We also provides our own electrical plant. So we have a generator on it that provides electricity for us at scenes. So right now, the only option for us is really the diesel. I don't know of anyone making gasoline engines for fire trucks. And I agree with you. That was part of the problems of the 2010 fire engine, was that whole EPA exhaust requirement. It finally ran its life cycle, and I had to replace the whole exhaust system just to be up to that EPA standards.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. We've been fighting this battle since 2010, Ralph. Then when we bought that engine too, that's when all
Yeah,
those standards came into play.
That's what I've heard from the DPW.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Complete
Yep.
agreement.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments about the pumpers for the chief? I think this is the third time he's come back on this, so if anyone has anything.
Thanks for the invites, Susan. I appreciate it.
What's that?
Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.
I'm happy seeing your quarters at Chief Dockery. You're repping.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, I know. Usually I'm in uniform. Tonight I'm in a Patriots pullover.
Kind of uniform.
Why not? Why not?
How did they do anyways?
Who are the Patriots?
Yeah.
I guess they won. I don't know. It was a big
Okay.
There was a
Thanks
big
for
party at Foxborough this afternoon. I couldn't make it because I had to be at a meeting at 6:30 in
Oh,
Cohasset.
okay. All right.
I think
Ouch.
the amazing part of that game is if you looked at it when it began and it was lovely and sunny in a green field, and you looked at it at the end of the game and it was totally snow covered, you couldn't see
Right.
the sidelines.
Yeah.
What an extraordinary
Right.
game that was.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
True.
So,
All right.
all
I
right.
don't have
And
any-
if
Thanks,
any future questions, feel free to reach out. Love to answer them and help you with anything. Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Chief.
Chief.
Very
Appreciate your
good.
time.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, so on the review of the stabilization worksheet, I started going through it. And I was using the one that we've always used, and it's not that easy to work with. So I have not finished that process, but I will continue to chip away at it. It's just such a colossally large spreadsheet that it is not easy to work with.
Yeah, well, I saw the one you did. I appreciate the one that you have posted. That it's certainly simplified and just
Yeah, I did post it
narrowing
in
it
a-
down just to the regular capital stabilization fund just takes away a lot of those columns. So that's good.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So Chrissy, I don't know if you had a chance to open that spreadsheet, but
I did. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I haven't looked at it yet. Is it on the SharePoint?
it is,
Yes.
Okay.
and if you would like, because everybody else has already gone through this exercise, but if you would like me to spend a few minutes with you on it, on where some of the numbers come from and what they mean, that'll be useful as we get into the voting process.
Okay.
We definitely look at that spreadsheet very closely.
Thank you. I'll take a look at it first. Thank you.
Okay. All right then, so next meeting and topics. I believe what we have left are the enterprise funds. And we had, we'll have to get facilities back in there. And we wanted to have Harbor come before us just to give us their view of their 10-year program.
I would think IT would be a critical one, actually, Susan.
They didn't ask for anything though, remember?
Yeah, they completely took away all their requests.
Which was a little worrying to me, but maybe we should have them in just to probe why they don't want anything.
Don't encourage them.
I know, but I don't
Yeah,
want our
that's still
computer
good.
systems to like fall hopelessly out of date because we're not investing. That seems like an area where there should be a little bit every year, you know?
Well, there had been previously.
Mhm.
Yeah. We can
We don't
certainly
have to
them
have
come
them in.
before
If
us
there's
and-
nothing, there's no point in that. Just taking our time to discuss it if there's nothing there. So
Yeah, I mean, we do have their 10-year, their 10-year plan on our OneDrive. You can see what they pushed forward. I can ask Ron to maybe just do a quick
remember, they're the
memo or
source.
something.
They are the source of the information on all of these surveillance cameras, however.
Mhm.
And I still raise the question as to what technology or what kind of engineering was done to actually determine where and how many and for what purpose those surveillance cameras are being put in. Remember, they're all external now.
Yeah.
And they're in parking lots and to some degree on buildings, but really no sense of the range, no sense of why they're there, why are they duplicated one above the other. There's an awful lot of things there that you say, was this really engineering or was this just simply, well, we've had them before, we'll put in more like them or something. So that is one thing, Kathy, that the IT people really were responsible for.
We were also told in the last meeting that when it comes to the schools, that it was also the police and FEMA, not FEMA, I'm sorry,
It was
Homeland
Homeland
Security.
Security, whatever that meant, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's just too broad a term, right?
Mhm.
But that's not adequate. That says I don't see any engineering. I see just
Mhm.
simply recommendations.
So Ralph, would you like to have IT come just to talk about that
Or
specific
whoever
topic?
feels they have an engineering plan and can explain why they have the ones they have, right? Or they're
Okay.
proposing, right? Yeah.
Well, I'll start with Michelle on that and ask her
Okay.
her opinion on who has that plan, and then that will be the party that we
Okay.
will invite to the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So in terms of calendar, 26. So if we stay on the 2-week cycle, we will be talking about the 9th of February.
Okay.
Does anyone have conflicts on that?
Okay, for me.
Nope, so ninth is good.
Susan, do we have a date where we need to have the list for the warrant?
Yes. We do. I don't see it in my calendar, my personal calendar. It's probably on the OneDrive calendar. But I can let you know when that is, but we still have a little
We
bit
have
of
time.
window. Yep.
And what is the process? Do we like finish meeting with people and do we have one or two meetings where we discuss and agree?
Yes, that has been the process in the past.
Okay.
Is that we, after our final discussions, we will then begin, talking amongst ourselves about the different requests that came before us and begin voting on them.
Okay.
And usually, I mean, I feel like we get from the schools their sense of what was most important to them. And in a lot of the other situations, like library only had one. And
Fire only
Joyce
has
really
one.
only had one at first, and then he came before us with the yard tractor, which he was going to get back to us on what the cost of continuing to rent it was going to be, but he was not able to come back for this particular session to do that. So I think we're going to be pretty ready to deliberate without having to bring anyone back. But we do have to get through the enterprise funds, even though we don't vote on them. It's just good to know, what's going on there. I'm sorry if you hear a baby in the background. My grandson's visiting. I don't know if you can hear him. Yeah, so I would imagine
you were
in 2
giving
sessions
me,
we would
I was
get through
getting
it.
paranoid that there was a baby. I was like, where's that baby coming from? So I'm glad it's on your end.
It's coming over the baby monitor. So anyways. All right, so I'll see of those groups who we can get for the 9th. And then I'll let you know what the warrant deadline is and when we should have our deliberation meetings. So that leaves minutes. Did anyone have a chance to read I think we put 12:8 and 1/6 on here, but we had already done 12:8, so it's really just 1/6 minutes, which I put into our OneDrive. Did everyone have a chance to take a look at those?
Mhm.
Did anyone have any comments?
No.
So move to accept.
Ralph,
Motion
you're
to
on
accept
mute.
minutes? Second, okay.
Move the meetings, the minutes of January 12th.
Second.
Motion to move minutes.
But I second too.
Okay.
Okay, vote. Is everybody voting?
Yeah, Rob Casemeyer, aye.
Kathy Forrest, aye.
Chrissy Francona, aye.
Chris Fleisch, aye.
Ardor Mitzer, aye.
Susan Franklin, aye. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you very much for your time.
On a motion to
Night.
adjourn?
And I
Second.
will get back to you guys about what I learned from Linda.
Great.
Okay.
And I'll also finish up my work on the stabilization spreadsheet. And Chrissy, if you could let me know some times that you might be available.
Okay.
I don't see more than a half hour.
Okay,
of
great.
time to go through it.
Chrissy, if
Thank
you could go to the through the police station and take advantage of that, it's really eye-opening. It's horrendous.
Yeah, I saw some of the pictures, but I can certainly try to go visit as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right, everybody. Then motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, then. I don't think anybody's going to vote against that one. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, great. Thanks all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.